I'll tell you, when my own grandmother needed to go to a nursing home and she was going on Medicaid and I was going to do the application for her and work with my grandfather and yada yada, it was like I never worked a day of my life in elder law. Oh, wow. It was like my logic went out the window.
Yeah, I was my own worst.
And I had to call my office and be like, what do I do? How do I do this? It was crazy. And so, but that really helped me identify with my clients.
Was maybe within the last year, and it was a real strange case, and I kind of called the attorney out on a little bit because I made arrangements with this woman. I'm talking years ago. The pre-plan was done probably like 2009. I made the pre-plan with her, but I also buried her husband and one of her kids too. So I have like a family history with this woman. In the interim, the attorney made another pre-plan, knowing that there was a pre-plan because they get statements from pre-plan. Made another pre-plan with my competition, which was like even added more fuel to the fire. But when I make pre-plans, I take notes. I literally will say, hey, this person loved to bake. Everybody has their best meatballs, but not as good as mine. So I knew the case, not at the time of the phone call, but like I just went and checked my records and I went, oh yeah, I remember her. And I told the other funeral home, I'm like, hey, listen, just don't do anything because something's weird here. And I called the attorney and she's not available. And then all of a sudden I got her and she's at like Notre Dame at her kid's college. And I'm like, hey, listen, we have a whole history with this family. She pre-planned it with me. I remember the case. I have notes. I go, why would you open up another pre-plan at another funeral home? I feel like that's misappropriation of funds. And it was like she got her back up real fast. And then all of a sudden, like within an hour, somebody from her firm called me back and was like, can you go pick her remains up at the other funeral home? And then like everything just went like, it went from like weird to like even weirder because it was like anytime I had a question, it was like followed up with, well, what do you need that for? What do you need this for? And it's like, well, why? Like I said to her, I go, you knew. I'm like, is there like some sort of deal you have worked out with that funeral home? And she, no, I swear to God, it's nothing like that. We just made a mistake. And I'm a little guilty always giving people the benefit of the doubt. But like that one felt real strange to me. Like you knew she had a preneed. You get the statements as the guardian. Am I correct in saying that?
I honestly don't know. I mean, they should have.
Yeah. So like the one you made, right? You were guardian for that woman. You did
that was my responsibility to
pre-plan.
Make the pre-plan, yeah.
So they did that, but the woman did it before she needed the guardian. Then
it's possible they didn't know about it.
It felt weird to me, and I just I gave the pushback, and then like I said, all of a sudden they were like, all right, come pick her up. You're right. And then I never even got a bill from the other funeral home. And it was like everything was just like, just give him what he wants.
Yeah.
So I found
I don't know.
that strange.
Either maybe they didn't know about it, or it was just an oversight or an accident, or
Do you come across a lot of guardianships?
Yeah.
And you can pick whatever funeral home you want?
Yeah.
So I mean that's a big responsibility, no? I mean, carry out somebody's final wishes, and then you're a healthcare proxy too, right? For that.
Yeah, you can. It depends on what the court gives you as powers, but you can be have financial management powers and healthcare decision making, which is, it's a hefty job.
Yeah,
really.
Literally, if someone's at like end of life and you have to make a decision to pull the plug.
Yeah,
that's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah,
and pulling the plug is not as easy as people think it is because there's that
not at all
thing called hope.
Yeah,
I have it in my wife's side of the family. They had an aunt who I think it was something to do with like a blood pressure medication, and she like didn't feel good, had a hard time breathing, collapsed. Technically, I think she died, but they brought her back, and she's been brain dead. She's in Gerwin for years now.
Really?
And it's very strange because you go there and her eyes are open, and she's on life support for forever. And the one child wanted to and one other one didn't. And I guess you always have to err on caution with that. And it's just...
So she had no advance directives, no living will?
I don't think so. And then on top of that, then the husband passed away in the interim. Like, I'm not kidding. She's been there for probably, I bet you it's the better part of 10 years.
Wow.
It's just like, it's sad, you know? Like,
that is
just
so sad. Because if we knew what she wanted and she had documented it.
Right, exactly.
I mean, that's like my worst fear, and my worst fear for people, that someone is left alive like that if they didn't want to be, or vice versa.
Right.
Because it's so easy to document what your wishes are and have these conversations with your family members so that your wishes are followed.
Yeah, it's
very simple.
Again, I know I'm biased, right? I'm in that field. So, like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But even from a financial standpoint on my stuff, it's like everything has gone up over the last couple of years, right? Especially, too, with COVID. Everything went straight up, and then nothing has come. It never goes back down.
Yep.
So why, like, on my end of it, we could sit down. You can plan your funeral. You get what you want. You're not a burden to your kids or your family, and you can pay for it all if you'd like, or you can make incremental payments. And there's no set amount. It's not like it's going to be, $1,100 a month for 5 years. You can give me, I think it's $1,000 to open the account, and then you can make. You get a good tax return and you want to pay, $10,000 towards it, you can pay the $10,000 towards it. If you just want to pay, I had a guy who paid me, I'm not exaggerating. It kind of restored my faith in humanity a little bit, not a lot. A bit. His mom passed. They thought they had a life insurance policy. They didn't. And this guy gave me like $50 a month. Not even me, my grandfather. He paid it all the way through he just paid it off probably like 3 years ago, from probably like the 90s.
Oh my gosh.
Every day he came in, it's like this old, like, it sounds like the muffler. Every time I'd hear that car come, and I'm like, oh, he's coming. He never missed a payment. If he couldn't make it, he would just call me. And it got to the point where, like, I let the last like $2,000 go. I was like, hey man, you just don't worry about it. I just come back. And like, so there is the positive side of that stuff too. It's like, it's in business, it's not all negative. You get to deal with the good, the bad, and the horrific, as I always like to say. Yeah. But the whole not planning thing is just, it's strange to me. I get it more on my side. Why people don't want to plan for that. But on your side, to me, it's just common sense. And in reality, it's just money. Like, you can't take it with you.
That's
you
right.
might as well be able to spend it on yourself, right? Like, I get all these. I have a hard time relying on the pre-planning on the Medicaid spend downs. I have a very hard time. I think it's my own insecurities relaying to the family, like, hey, it's a funeral. It's like one of the only things you can spend whatever you want on. Right. Because I don't want to come off like a, forgive me if you're a used car salesman and you're listening, but like a hokey used car salesman, just trying to, juice a bill. It's not. So, like, I try to go out of my way to explain that to people, and I feel like sometimes I'm overloading them with information. And, they'll, no, don't do it. Just like, because I'll put the flowers on there. I'll put if they're doing like a lunch reception, 'cause some people got a few bucks, they need to get it down.
Right,
like,
exactly.
A tremendous amount.
And this is one of the very few ways they can do that.
Yeah. So, like, it's
just logical. It makes sense.
Yeah, so I always tell them, I go, look, you could either spend it on yourself, or social services is going to take it.
Right.
And you work your whole life, just from that standpoint too, right? Like, you work your whole life, you pay your taxes, you do what you got to do, and then if you don't plan the right way, there's a penalty for it. Yeah. It's wild.
But I think at that point, when people are coming in, they're overloaded with information, like you said.
Yeah, and you can see they just glaze over.
Yeah,
and
it's that's a like, difficult place up there.
I just pull back a little bit.
Yeah,
and
I know.
I try to like to have somebody else in the room from the family with me, just where they can, they have a clearer head about it. Yeah. It's definitely easier to relay that info to them, and they go, I got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
because we're looking at it from a logical standpoint. It's very logical.
That's what you pay us for.
Right. So
is
we're
to get you
giving
through.
them advice in a very logical way, but they're hearing like all of these things coming at them that they've
And
never
all they
heard
hear
before.
too in reality is change.
Right,
How
and
much,
they've
how
got
much,
this
how much?
emotional overlay of what's going on, right? That,
Yeah.
you know, mom's gone to a nursing home or whatever the case is, and they're just like reeling with the implications of that and what's going to happen medically, and you know what's going to happen in the future, and how's she going to do, and how are we going to pay for this, and now I've got all this documentation I have to get together for Medicaid, and yada yada yada. It's like it's completely overwhelming.
Yeah, it is. It's
And I'll tell you, when my own grandmother needed to go to a nursing home and she was going on Medicaid, and I was going to do the application for her and work with my grandfather and yada yada, it was like I never worked a day of my life in elder law.
oh, wow.
It was like my logic went out the window.
Yeah, I was my own worst.
Yeah, and I had to call my office and be like, "What do I do? How do I do this?" It was crazy, and so, but that really helped me identify with my clients. That
I think
like,
it made me a better. This sounds so weird, but it made me a better funeral director. When my grandparents died,
Definitely.
especially my grandfather, who was like the rock of our family, he was the patriarch. You know, World War II vet, General Patton's Tank Corps. When he passed, I had like paralyzing anxiety. And to the point where I had to go on like mood stabilizers. I've talked about this before. And like, I'll never forget playing soccer with my kid in the backyard. And it's like that, like coming back to me moment of like, what am I doing? Like, what am I worried about all this for? Like I was down the road. I was like homeless. My wife left me. My kids don't talk to me. All not normal thoughts. Like that doesn't just happen. Not to say it's not possible, but like it, you know, like something like that would snowball. I had lost a business and I was just in my head.
Wow.
And then I didn't sleep for like 3 days. And I just felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. And then I went and saw a therapist and they were like, hey, like this isn't just grief rearing its ugly head. And then I got back to being me. And now I want to get it out there that like these are all normal things. So I want to normalize like end of life planning, death and dying. There's a woman, I don't know if you've ever heard of it. I think it's Nurse Julie. She's a hospice nurse. And she talks about like the actively dying, and it's like I don't know how she gets the families to sign off on it, but she does. It's wild. So like she'll have like videos of people in like the throes of dying. And she tries to normalize it, but it's scary. You know, like it is, right? And to me, the dying part is not so scary. It's the what's next.
Right.
We don't really know
so
about.
unknown. That's what's scary.
Like, you know, you hear, you know, you have all the religious beliefs. So then you have like the non-religious beliefs, which I have a hard time with because it's like, it's just lights out. That's it. Nothing. Just blackness. So it's like I have a hard time wrapping my head around that. Especially because like if you just look at the way like how everything in the world and the universe is just so interconnected, and it's just like I don't know that it's, you know, exactly how they say it is, but I feel like there's got to be something like after this. It can't just be the fade to black like that pigeon at the train station.
Yeah.
You know, I just it's got to be something, some sort of reward.
Right, for those of us who do well, act well.
Yeah, and listen, there's probably a timeout section. I might spend a little bit of time there for my
In the corner with the dunce hat on.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, again, like I don't think it's exactly how one sex says, you know. And then if you look at all their writings too, they were like oddly similar, just but from different corners of the world. So you know.
But we should normalize it because it's 100% part of life. It's the
happen
cycle
to
of life.
everyone.
We can't avoid it, so why not talk about it?
I don't know. I couldn't agree with you more. I think that it's healthy to get those anxieties out. Too,
Yeah.
right? Because if you don't talk about it, like it's just like anything, you have a problem in your life, right? You keep it to yourself and it manifests and manifests. You get distress, and then all of a sudden you have a conversation with maybe your girlfriend or your best friend or your wife or whoever, your parent, and then you get that stress off your back and you're like, oh. And to me, I always say, like, when you're in your own head, it's like, it's not always, it becomes extreme, right? It's one way or the other. There's no black and white.
Yeah.
There's no, like, you know, halfway marks. So, like, to get out of your own head and talk to somebody is a good thing. It's...
And it often turns out that the people around you, or, you know, they're thinking the same thing. And you're like, oh, you're worried about that too? Or you're having the same thoughts? Or, you know, and then you realize that you're not, the anomaly. Everyone else is having the same issues, having the same problems, having the same thoughts, and you don't feel so alone anymore.
How do you do? So you're one of the, I would imagine, one of the bigger firms on the island, maybe even in New York. How did you get to where you are? Because it's not easy being in business, and you have the business itself, and then you have everything else, not just your family. I mean, like getting the business through the door. How did you manage your time between home life, kids, marriages, and just everything? Like, because I have a hard time doing that myself. It's like I at times feel very overwhelmed. 2 or 3 networking meetings, non-for-profit dinners, this, that, the other thing. And if you don't do it, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, you're dying.
Right.
So like, how did you manage that coming up?
My motto has always been slow and steady wins the race. So I've always kind of been thoughtful and purposeful in what I'm doing. And I love what I do. So it's just a labor of love. And I really like thinking outside the box. And I really like, I'm an advocate at heart. And so what I do mostly is things that I think are going to help people and bring things to the next level, whether it's the conversation or the things we can do to help people live better lives that they're living, or age better, or whatever the case may be, housing issues or health issues or whatever.
I think though, I mean more like for you, like how do you manage that time? Because it's, in reality with me, I feel like what gets sacrificed is my wants and needs.
Oh, I have no wants and needs. I don't have time for that.
I just feel like at this stage of my life too, I catch myself like, listen, I have goals that I work to and I've met a bunch of them, but then all of a sudden you get there, right? And it's like whole new set. Now I want this. Yeah. And then I feel like I'm steadfast and I won't sacrifice any time, like when it comes to my kids and my wife. Not to say that like I haven't, but like I've make every game. I make all the practices, and I feel like it's difficult to do all that as well as run a business. And I have 2. I have a florist too.
Right.
And now we're doing this, trying to normalize all this, which people find to be terrifying.
Right.
So like, do you have still, or did you have an outlet besides the dogs coming up?
The truth is because I do love what I do, I don't spend or dedicate much of my time to taking care of myself or
my health is definitely
having hobbies or anything. And I keep saying when I retire, I will. Honestly, I can't see myself even retiring.
I don't know that retirement's like the answer. My grandfather,
I know,
God rest his soul, lived to 96. And I'm not exaggerating. He worked till like 94. And then as soon as he stopped working, you saw just off a cliff mental decline.
Yep.
And I really attribute the longevity and he looked great. When he was 94, 95, he still looked like he was in his like mid to late 70s. He also, would walk 4 miles a day. And, I think I even say too, like if I won the lottery tomorrow, like I think sitting on a beach in Hawaii sipping Mai Tais is great for about 2 weeks.
Exactly.
And then
I
what?
was just going to say that. What? Yeah.
Us as human beings, I feel like we're meant to build. So I catch myself now wanting more for my employees than I do for myself.
Yeah.
I just like, I feel that responsibility more so in the florist, because the funeral home is my sister and I. So it's like we have a great ebb and flow for like workload and stuff like that. But like for my florist, it's like I see how hard these people work for me. So I go out, and when I get tired, and I don't want to go to a networking meeting because it's at 7:00 in the morning, and I was out last night at a not-for-profit dinner till 10:00 at night, and like I for whatever reason they come up in my mind. It's like, oh, they're dependent on me to bring new business in.
Right.
And I'm really starting to think that way more about that. Like, don't get me wrong, I want for me too. Don't get me. But I think as I'm getting older, I'm getting softer. And I think my views on things are starting to change a little bit more. Before, before all this, I was like, well, you know, you did the crime, you do the time, and that's your problem, and you dug that grave. And like, I've just learned that life is not that simple.
Yeah.
And I think that you can counteract all that by just seeking the advice of an attorney and like somebody like you that can help you manage all those landmines that are out there. And, you know, the problem is that they also don't see the aftermath, right? If they don't plan, they go, they pass away. They don't get to see the landmines that they've left everywhere for the family to navigate.
That is true.
And I think what happens is then that family is so pro planning after that because they don't want to put their kids
make sure it never
through.
happens. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And the people that their parents did plan and have everything all set up, they're so appreciative.
Oh yeah.
They're like, oh, my friend's dealing with this whole mess, and my parents set everything up right, and I'm so grateful. You know, I hear things like that all the time.
I'm pretty sure you know Steve Kirschbaum from Lessings. We did a lunch, not a lunch and learn, but we have our networking group, and we did everybody gets to do a presentation, like more in depth of what they do. So I'm like, hey, let's do mine at the funeral home. Let's change the scenery, this, the other thing. And that guy stood up and gave like a 5-minute better rant than I did on like how, and it was nice to hear somebody else do it. You know what I mean? How he did the pre-planning for his mom and dad. And then, you know, when they died, there was just a folder in a drawer that said, you know, in case of an emergency, break glass and call this number. And like, he was so forthcoming and passionate about it for 5 minutes. That's all it was. And I just sat there and I just was like, okay, shut up. Let him go. And, you know, and it was refreshing because it's like the other way. It's always like, I feel like I'm the Grim Reaper sometimes. You know, like nobody wants to ever talk about it. So.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's...
But they should. You're normalizing it.
Trying.
As you should.
We're trying.
Since you've been in the firm for so long, like, what's rewarding about it changed over the time for you? Like, in the beginning, it was different to what it is now. Like you said, you're working with clients.
It was so different in the beginning. Well, in the beginning, I was doing everything. So I was, you know, the person answering the phone, making the copies, dealing with every client, getting out the invoicing. But that was cool too because I was in control of everything. And what I loved about that was it was simpler. I knew everything that was going on.
Yeah, when you get bigger.
Yeah. And, you know, as soon as the client paid the bill, I was in Manhattan at the time, and as soon as the client paid the bill, I would go to the bank, deposit it, and then go to Staples and buy supplies. That was the routine.
Are you still in Manhattan? Are you still in Manhattan
We
too?
still have an office in Manhattan, but
Where do you spend most of your time?
Melville. Melville's the headquarters.
So I went to college in Manhattan, and I lived in Brooklyn for a while. And I got to be honest, if I never go back, I'll be okay with it.
Yeah. So we have the office in the city, we have Garden City and Port Jefferson, but Melville's the main office. The
I've heard rumors about your like files. Like there's a file room that's like the size of a building in itself.
Did you see when you were there? You didn't see our file room?
I was late, unfortunately. Same thing happened to me. It happened to you. They shut down. There was a tractor trailer flipped over.
Oh man!
So I was late, and but I heard through. I forget who told me. I forget, but they were like, "You got to see this lady's file room."
That's hysterical because we're paperless.
Are you?
Yeah, but we still do have a pretty large file room because
you have a beautiful office
stuff.
Too.
Yeah, our office is so gorgeous. We renovated, I want to say about 2 years ago. And we did have a professional interior design person come in and an art person. And I always thought that I had a pretty good eye for design, but it's nothing compared to what they can do.
I have a pretty good eye. What's your most expensive stuff? Like, oh, give me one right underneath that, please. And they're like, oh, we see you coming, dude. Get out the old good stuff.
So now that it's been so long and it's so big, it's the people, right? Like the people that work for you.
Yeah, managing the people is difficult because, you know, every person has their own issue, their own backstory, their own this and that. And I have always wanted to have an office that would be a place where I wanted to work. That was always sort of my mission.
Yeah.
Because not all offices are like that.
No, I've actually just run into that. I had at my florist, I had somebody there that was so talented but so toxic. And it came to the point where it ended, and it ended bad, and it ended on my 40th birthday, and I just now looking back, like a little over a month, almost 2 months later, and it was. I want to say it was the greatest gift I've ever given myself, but like there was a long time I didn't want to go to my own store.
Oh no!
And like that person's now gone, and there's consequences to that. Don't get me wrong, but the culture changed immediately. People that used to work there that left because of this person have now said, "Hey, I'd be willing to come back and work now that they're gone," and it's like a fun and happier place to be.
Yeah, you know the decisions you have to make.
I say that all the time.
You know that, but they're just so hard anyway, and you don't want to have to make them.
I say it all the time. You seek counsel of people, but I know deep down that I know what has to be done.
Yep,
I think a lot of people are like that, and it's just those like, well, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
This person too that I had was so interwoven into like every aspect of the business. Like people thought I was just like the manager and they were the owner. And, she, again, I catch myself defending her because I never really like to burn bridges. But in this instance, I'd like to let the bridges we burn light the way. The whole business went, okay, like we can have fun. We can we don't have to listen to just the Eagles. That was like this crazy thing. It was like, we can only listen to the Eagles. And then I would change it. And she would be like, who changed the Alexa? Man. And I'd be like, I did. And she'd be like, why'd you do that? And I'm like, because I own the store. I don't have to explain and I'm not like that. But simple stuff like that.
Yeah.
Did you guys enjoy the flowers I sent?
Oh my gosh, they were amazing.
I sent you the best ones.
Yeah, obviously. No, they were so gorgeous.
Those are signature roses. They're called Esperance roses. We actually hand open those.
I've never seen anything like that before in my life. Nobody had in the office or at my house when I brought them home.
We hand open those, and then we. Did you
and
like
then
the?
You spray,
did you like the glitter?
Yeah.
I didn't know you well enough to make the call, but I was like, yeah, you know what? This is our shtick. Let's stick with it. And I was like, I hope she likes them.
So that's what you peel them back to hand open them, and then...
so we literally, it's called reflexing. We literally reflex every single petal. It's such a pain in the ass, but it takes time. But they look awesome, right? Like those roses are like the size of softballs.
Oh my gosh, it was incredible.
Yeah, they're called an Esperance rose, often imitated, but I have one of my competition. Actually, I should probably two of my neighboring florists have pictures of that vase that I sent you on their website.
Get out!
Swear to God. It's just, and I'm like...
You should trademark that then.
I know. I wonder if I can.
I don't know.
Well, if it's done like that way, in that vase, with the sparkles, I should trademark that.
It's a different lawyer.
Can you make a recommendation?
Absolutely. If I don't do it, I can refer you to somebody.
So one thing we like to ask people at the end of the shows, what would you want for your funeral?
Oh. I have a disposition of remains. So what I have on there is I want the Joan Baez version of Amazing Grace sung.
Okay.
I want to be cremated.
Okay. It's very popular now. Why would you choose cremation over like a traditional burial or in the wall? The best answer would be like, because all in all, I don't want to be another brick in the wall.
That's a great answer. You should have told me that in advance.
I just thought of it.
It's just how I feel.
People ask me all the time at the arrangements, well, what do you think? And I go, I gotta be honest, they all suck. All the options are terrible. But cremation is definitely on the rise. We were probably like 90-10 in favor of burials or entombments, excuse me. We are easily like probably 50-50 now, cremations. Listen, people don't want to pay these abhorrent cemetery bills. Like even with my own grandparents, I'm guilty of it. When they died, I think we paid like $40,000 for their mausoleum. Just the mausoleum. And, and that's like a public one. It's not like the big fancy one where you're by yourself. Although if you have that kind of money and you want to talk to me, I'm here for you.
I think it might just come from my parents. They both want to be cremated. Their instructions to me are to sprinkle their ashes in the Lake George area where we used to go hiking. So I think it's probably just kind of family tradition.
We go to Lake George every year. It's one of my favorite places. We stay at the Sagamore, and like that view.
Oh, it's beautiful.
my brain can't like. I don't know what it is. It's like the depth of it. It's so massive and it's out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's one of my. I think it's like one of my favorite places. Not because it's like this tropical paradise, but because you could just like you go there, you check out. It's a quick 4-hour ride. You don't got to get on a plane.
Yep.
And that's another thing. That's another hang up I got at like 38. I was like, I don't want to go on planes anymore. Which I will, don't get me wrong, but I just might have to drug myself to get on it.
I also love just how clean the air is. You notice when you get there, it's just like...
Crisp.
It's totally different than
You ever
here.
go there in the winter?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they have like the whole ice bar set up?
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, it's great. It's nice up there.
You have a particular drink of choice?
Tequila.
Wow, we could be friends.
I'm so glad we could be friends.
I like a good reposado. I gotta be honest, I don't even know the difference between reposado and añejo, but I just know I like reposado.
Reposado is smokier.
Is it? That's,
Yeah.
You know, I liked scotch before that.
That
And
explains
then
it.
I had gotten a stomach ulcer and I started getting like bad reflux. And the only thing I could really have cocktail wise was the tequila. But tequila's dangerous though.
It's a little dangerous.
One sip too much and
Yep.
next thing you know, you're dancing on a bar in Aruba.
Don't you hate when that
How
happens?
did you get here?